Good afternoon. I'm Doug Holder, and this is a sort of first session of Poet to Poet for a long time. And I'm glad to have two guests with me, Kevin Carey and Stephenie Young, and in the Cosmos, we'll discuss it later, Jennifer Martelli. But they've come out with a book of photographs and poetry. It's titled Revere Beach Stories. Okay. And so Stephenie is a photographer and a professor, um, a full professor at Salem State University. And are you a full professor too?
After next year.
After next year, right. He's still a young guy. He's just on the track. But anyway, I was going to ask you guys, we'll start out with Kevin. As you sit here in Revere, and we're right on the Chocolate Cafe, right near the beach, and this was your old stomping grounds. Can you tell us what has changed since your days in Revere, and what has stayed the same, you think?
Well, I feel like Revere's always been a kind of revolving door of different immigrant populations, over the years. That has changed from one population to another, I'm sure. From the time when I was a kid here, I grew up on the other end of the beach, down the Pointed Ponds, right on the Lynn line. And but I know this beach pretty well. I had jobs on the beach over the years, and hung out here, and played around on the beach, and as a child and an adult.
So the beach doesn't change.
I don't think the beach itself changes. People come and go, and different waves of people come in, and other waves of people move on. And so I think in that way, it's kind of been always the same kind of melting pot, especially in this area.
It's always been a gateway city, kind of.
Yeah, kind of, yeah. And so it still feels kind of like that to me. The beach itself still feels pretty similar. Still feels a little honky tonk, and a lot of condos.
It's a lot of Cambodian, no, not so many Cambodian, Asians, Hispanics, and Muslim people live here now. It's a very eclectic community.
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
I was going to say, having a discussion with you, Stephenie, before the show. You made me aware of your eclectic background. Maybe you can you're the photographer. Maybe you can tell us a little bit about your background.
Okay. I'm from Orange County, California. And as a kid, the beach was important to us. We go to Huntington Beach on the bus. My mom took us to Laguna Beach. Our whole life was kind of like hanging out at the beach, right? So we had a lot of time with the beach. The ocean was very important to me. And you don't really realize that until you live away from the beach for a while, right? But as a kid, I was also raised in a house with artists. So my mom was a photographer. She was shooting for some punk rock bands, let's say, and other things like Dead Kennedys, so the art and photography was always around me. And we had a dark room in the house. Growing up, it was very 70s, have the dark room. It was right next to my bedroom. In lieu of a bathroom, we had a dark room, their second bathroom. And so I always had this kind of photography around me. Growing up in Orange County, eventually we moved to San Francisco. I went to art school. And then I thought, maybe I should get a more organized degree. So I got a degree in art history as an undergraduate, thinking I would go back to study photography again. But then I kind of kept going and got a PhD in what's called comparative literature, studying about how do we tell stories through literature and art. I worked on artists in Chile, in Latin America. That was kind of my specialization. How do we tell stories under oppression and dictatorship? And so I was just kind of doing photography through the years, and got a job here. And met Kevin, who's my colleague in my department at Salem State in the English department.
Well, yeah, I have many other jobs. I was in my early 40s when I got an MFA and put my name in at Salem State. Got a call to teach a World Lit class The call came on Saturday. The class started on Wednesday, and I had to kind of hustle around to get a syllabus together. And but after teaching that class, I really liked it. I enjoyed the experience, and I kept hanging around, bouncing from full time to adjunct, and then finally got a tenure track job. So it's a great job. I'm thankful for it.
So I was going to say, ask you, how hard is it to fit your photographs with poetry?
That's a great question. Okay, so it's I took the photographs independent of all the poetry that's in our exhibition that opens next week. And what happened is I took the photographs during COVID mainly and a little bit after COVID because I'm a huge traveler and I was looking for a place to travel to, and Revere was the most foreign to me, the most foreign place I could drive to during COVID as a Californian, let's say. It was a place I was intrigued by. And then Kevin said, "Hey, I've been writing poetry about Revere, and you want to."
Oh, I was going to say there are many coastal communities you could have gone to. Why?
Here? Well, I live in Somerville.
Yeah.
And to me, Revere was the most foreign coastal community. It was the place that was the most eclectic, like we were talking about earlier. It was the most intriguing to me. It was the most mysterious. It had a reputation for being really rough and unlovely in a sense that people go to the Cape, or if they want to go to the seaside, they go to these other more romantic New England kind of spaces. And Revere had kind of it was the opposite, and I kind of felt like Revere was the underdog in the beaches that around here. And I wanted to check it out for myself and say, what's going on, at this place. And I was always driving to work for years. I was driving along the Revere Beach on my way to Salem to work day in, day out for years and years and years with never really stopping, but just looking at it. And I said, this place is beautiful. It has a certain aesthetic quality. I'm going to take photographs of Revere and through a different vision than the stories that I'm hearing about Revere. And so my first picture I tried to take, I put it up on Facebook or something. And my friends were like, where are you? Where did you go during COVID? They said, it looks like the Mediterranean. And I said, Revere Beach. And then Kevin was watching my photographs. We were friends and through work. And then he said, I've got these poems and it would be so cool if we could do something with Revere Beach poems and your images and try to see if they talk to each other. And then we brought in Jen Martelli, who we'll talk about in a few minutes. And then we all started meeting for a couple years thinking about, can these poems and photographs, can they create a narrative, a story? Can we do something by bringing them together? And so it wasn't that I said, I have a photograph, I'm going to apply it to a poem. We just started thinking, could this work? Could this tell a greater story of Revere through our different perspectives?
Okay.
That's how we got it going initially. Yeah.
Not everyone writes about their hometown. I never wrote poetry about where I came from in Long Island and New York.
Yeah, I wrote a lot about Revere over the years. But, to piggyback on what Stephenie was saying, I think Jennifer and I felt like Stephenie's photographs were so beautiful, and they were mostly on the water side, right, on the beach itself. And we had these poems that kind of dealt with the other side of the boulevard, right, in some of the bar rooms and some of the places, and the restaurants and some of the characters that we knew. So it felt like putting them together gave you the whole picture of Revere Beach, right? And not just the beauty on one side and the architecture, but some of the stories behind the city itself. Right?
Well, I know you spent a lot of time down in New Jersey, and William Carlos Williams had his Patterson, New Jersey. Is this your sort of Patterson, New Jersey?
Yeah, I think so. I think as I've moved away from Revere over the years, I think I've written more and more about it. So I think a lot of it has come from, retrospect, just thinking about my life in Revere as a younger person. And that seemed to be fodder for a lot of poetry and storytelling.
Okay. So let's talk a bit about Jennifer Martelli. I had the privilege to, Jennifer Martelli, I had the privilege to interview her years ago. She sort of just skyrocketed in the poetry world. In fact, there's there's a new contest, a chapbook contest.
Yeah, there's a contest in her name that has just got off the ground. So, which is great. I mean, Stephenie can talk about it too, but Jennifer and I grew up here, and over the years, as I moved away from here, she was kind of my connection to here. We knew a lot of the same people, we knew a lot of the same stories, and it was great to just sit down with her and kind of reminisce about Revere. But she was an incredible poet, and she did a lot of great storytelling through her poetry about this place. And then when we all met one day in a bakery in Broadway, and started to think about how this project would look. And, maybe you can tell your reactions to that.
I mean, I didn't know Jen until Kevin said, "I know this poet," and I said, "Okay," from Revere, and he said, "Let's get together and talk about a project." And I met Jen, and she's amazing, and she was just collaborations can be easy, they can be difficult, somewhere in between. But our collaboration, I felt like, was just always easy. Like we were all either busy at the same time working on the collaboration, or we all just gave it up at the same time. We kind of went through the same moods together. But Jen was always supportive. I mean, she just was great about the photography. She was very open about editing and changes and how we should put things together, because we all had to be super flexible, because we really didn't know what we weren't sure what we were going to do with it. We just knew we had these different objects, and we knew we wanted them to come together. And we didn't even know. We said, well, we'd like to make a book, or we'd like to have an exhibition, let's see what's going to happen. But Jen was supportive, for the entire, she couldn't come to our exhibition at the Winn-Fiske in Salem State last year. She had to stay home, and that was, it was really disappointing, but we Zoomed her in, and we had her in the exhibit with us, and we, so at least we tried to keep her included as much as possible. And she was just an amazing human being.
How about, I mean, you're an English professor, right?
Mm-hmm.
So how about her poetry? What spoke to you about her poetry?
I mean, I'm an English okay, so first of all, I do study literature to some point, but I'm not that kind of English professor. If you're, it's hard to explain. But I mean, her poetry touched me because I thought that it was sensitive to what I was already seeing here. Like it was showing me things I'd seen, but of course taking it through language and just showing me what I'd seen, but through her point of view. But I also thought her poetry was very beautiful. I don't know. I mean, I'm thinking of the words of how you describe her poetry, but I thought that once I read her poetry, I was a little worried at first because Kevin said, okay, well, I've written these poems. Jen's written these poems. Here's your pictures. We're going to put them together. And I was like, okay, let's see what happens. But when I started reading through the poems of both Jen and Kevin, I said, wow, okay, I see affiliations between the images, some of the images I've taken, and it feels like they're playing off each other and making my picture stronger. And then my pictures making their poetry perhaps stronger. I don't know if that's up to the poets to decide. Yeah. But I thought we decided for the exhibit that we wouldn't have normal placards next to the images that taken in Revere 2021. We put the poems where the placard. So it's like people would come up and you look at the image and the only description you have is a poem. Mm-hmm. And we made that, decision because that's how we wanted it all to be thought of as not separate, right? Not like here you read a poem, now you look at a picture, but just kind of like how you look at it together. And for people who come to the exhibit to really make up the decision for themselves, like how does this poem work with this image? And at our first exhibit, people were like, oh, Stephenie, maybe this poem would go with that picture. Everybody started really getting into the idea of how do you put a poem with an image, mm-hmm. That wasn't written directly for that image. Mm-hmm. And, it's all random in the end in that sense, but we did what we felt like worked well together. Mm-hmm. But it was great that people got so involved that they wanted to make their own exhibit almost, like, oh, this poem is cool with that too. But that also showed me how far the poetry really touched the photographs to such a deep extent that it could be kind of moved around,
Okay.
So, and that's how it happened that first night, right?
Yeah.
When we went to set up in the Winn-Fiske, because we didn't know what poems were going to go with what photographs. Really, we had a draft of the book.
We had some ideas, yeah.
And then we just kind of, how about this one here? And we'd look at it and move it around, and that should go with the
And
one
Jen
on the
would
other
be
side
like,
of the room.
I don't think so.
Yeah,
She was
yeah.
like, it was
Can I say no to this one?
Yeah.
And so for us, it was really kind of wonderful and random and interactive at that moment.
The
Which is funny because when we go to hang it on the 15th,
16th.
yeah, the show's on the
Yes.
16th, but we'll hang it the day before. I'm not sure I'm going to remember where we put them, so it's going to be new again.
Well, yeah, because we can look at we have
Yeah.
have some in the book, but we kind of change it as we go along because our moods change.
Yeah.
You know what we think works. So the book is one iteration of the show that keeps kind of changing slightly as we move along.
And that show is going to be June 16th at the Revere
July,
History Museum.
yeah.
July. I'm sorry,
Yeah.
July 16th at the Revere. What time is that?
Revere History Museum at 6:30.
6:30.
Yeah.
Free and open to the public.
Free and open to the public. There'll be copies of the books for sale there, and the exhibit will hang through the weekend for people that can't make that evening.
So first, I'll ask you. You were impressed by the poetry of Jennifer Martelli. So why don't you read your favorite poem, if you have one, of Jennifer's?
Okay, let me see if I have my glasses. First of all, sorry. I just
You
need
want
a
me to
second.
read one first?
Yeah,
Yeah,
why don't
go
you read
ahead.
one first, Kevin? I'll get organized.
And you could read your own too.
Here's a short one by Jen.
Mhm.
As a crow flies. On my car's navigational system, North Shore Road is a straight yellow line between the blue of Revere Beach and the Pines River, where a woman once walked into and drowned herself after shooting her husband at home. And I thought, what willpower to drown oneself, to keep going farther in and under. I am technically on Route 1, which would take me right down to Key West if I kept going for days as a crow flies. Airplanes lower above me towards Logan Landing, so low, people here need shatterproof windows to muffle the sound and to keep the pains whole.
And you took.
I love that one. I mean,
Stephenie
that's
took a picture of.
Yeah, that picture that goes with it.
I don't have my glasses, so that's good. I'm glad you read that one because
Okay.
I can't read without my
You want-
glasses.
From
So.
my glasses.
I could try, but it might be a little awkward. Usually I carry them with me, but I love that one as the crow flies. I can read another one.
Want to try
Yeah,
the Devil Tides?
Yeah.
How are those?
Let's see. I think they're fine. Okay. The devil tides. There are rocks off the coast shaped like eggs. There are rocks shaped like misery and one like a skull. If you are born up here, you know sadness and you know gulls. You know how a good clamshell makes a good ashtray. You know the land is as flat as any place where men change into wolves under the moon. You know that. Resent everything, for it's the only way you don't forget. Resent everything you love. It keeps you anchored to the beach. Some days the seaweed is red clogged with pennies or fingers. It smells even in the cold. Too many villages are connected by thin causeways pinched on either side by the Atlantic. Devil tides cut them off from the world. Folks go out and never come back. There are empty graves engraved in marble in big churches. Folks go out hot and turn blue. No one ever forgets except how to measure. If you knew this, you'd never ask anything more of me.
So if I was to ask you one word or phrase that would sort of epitomize Revere Beach, what would that be? I know it's a hard question.
That's a really hard question. Yeah, I haven't really thought about. I mean, let me think about that for a second. Kevin might want to go first if we're asking, but
Well, I was just thinking as you were reading the poem, how you had talked about how the poems kind of give new meaning to the photograph. And I mean, I grew up in this place, and I felt like when I was looking at your photographs, I was reimagining a place that I maybe started to know in a different way now. Like they were fresh and they were new to me. And that was exciting because, I mean, here's a place I could walk around blind and tell you where I was going, right? like I really knew this place. But your photographs showed it to me in another light, and that was really wonderful for me.
Thanks, Kevin. That means a lot. You know, you made me think of the word. It might not make a lot of sense when I say it, but I would say generosity. Because when I came out here to take photographs, as a photographer, sometimes you get a lot of resistance when you're with the community. And I think Revere showed me the generosity that made me want to keep coming back, because people were so cool when I came out. People wanted their pictures taken, or they were asking, "What are you doing?" Or everyone was so nice.
That's
and
good.
I remember that, when they put in the parking meters and everybody was so pissed, and then they took them out, and the community is against it, the parking meters. But I came down here and I said, "Oh, the parking is great, because I can just park wherever I want. Everyone is super friendly to me. I feel like I can take pictures." Everyone gave me permission when I went around asking people. No one said no. No one ever got mad at me or said no or acted. They were open. And then with Jen and Kevin, also generosity. Like, they were appreciating my photographs. They wanted to work with me. That's a compliment.
So so there was a real good sensibility here. It reminds me of this joke that a poet friend of mine in Somerville used to say. He says, if if you're taking photographs, they think you're an artist. If you're taking photographs in Medford, they think you're from an insurance company.
Well, even one day I came out here during a winter storm, because I was just driving out anytime. And I was the only one on the beach because, of course, the weather was crazy. And I was ruining my camera, which I later found out, because I have my lens. But I was out here taking a picture during the storm, and there was a news team out here, and they interviewed me for the news. I was on the 5 o'clock news or something, talking about this crazy woman taking photographs at Revere in the middle of a storm. But, I was just coming out as much as I could in those years, because I also felt like it was a friend to me during COVID, like a place that I was learning about and getting to know. And it was comforting to come here and be part of the community. And it was, and represent them in my own way, I suppose. Yeah.
How can we order your book? You can get them at the event. But...
Red Nun Press, P.O. Box 1179.
I think it's on
Austin,
Amazon
Mass.
too.
Is it on Amazon?
I think it's on Amazon.
And you can probably get it on Amazon. It's $20, full of wonderful poems and photographs.
Well, and you can also write to me or to Kevin on Instagram or something, and we can get you a book, or come to the opening. The museum will sell some books at the opening as well.
Yeah, and the opening is going to be really cool, because it's all different rooms. It's not just one open gallery. So you wander into one room, and there'll be some of them set up in there, and it's this little kind of interesting history museum of the city of Revere. So I think the setup of where they're going to be and how you're going to be able to view them will be really interactive and cool.
And it's the last time we're going to show them.
And this is it. This is the last run for the exhibitions. We had one at the gallery in Salem, one at the Peabody Essex Museum. And, it's funny. The three of us have never been together at an exhibit, right?
It's true.
You never met Jennifer?
We met setting it up, but we haven't been at an exhibit.
Oh, together,
Because when Jen was still alive, she had COVID at the first one. Then Stephenie was traveling when it was at the PEM. And now, unfortunately, Jen's no longer with us. So it's just weird.
Yeah, absolutely.
But, we miss her a lot. She was great.
Well, I want to thank both of you for joining me on this revival of the poet-to-poet, writer-writer, and I hope I'll be doing more in the near future. And go July 16th at the Revere History Museum, 6:30 p.m. to see this great exhibit and hear poetry and look at great photography.
Thank you for having us.
All right, thanks.
We appreciate it a lot.
Thank you.